Good morning, everybody, and welcome to this morning's webinar. This is the sixth one that I've conducted over the last year and a half. For those of you who haven't dialed in before, welcome. My name is David Beattie, and I've been at Booster now for 24 years, and most of that time as Chief Investment Officer, looking after the investment side of the business, but I've also spent quite a bit of time out talking to people about retirement issues more recently, and looking forward to providing some wisdom that I have garnered over the last few years to help make this phase of our lives a little bit more enjoyable. I myself will become a pensioner in a few months' time too, so this is all very real for me. Just a bit of a disclaimer and a reminder that what I'm going to talk about this morning is only general advice, and that I can't really get down to individual specific advice provision. Each of you will have your own personal circumstances that are very relevant in determining matters around your retirement planning and investment strategy. So useful also just to remind you that hopefully most of you will have access to one of our KiwiSaver advisors. They're spread throughout New Zealand. If you haven't, just get in touch and we can put someone in touch with you. And just good to know also that looking only at KiwiSaver itself, that advice from the advisors is free. If you wanted to extend beyond that, then you can sit down and discuss with them how much they may wish to charge you for advice going beyond KiwiSaver. So well worth anyway, just having an initial chat to them about your KiwiSaver, just to make sure you're on the right track. Okay. Get the screen to go forward, which it's not. There we go. Today, we're going to be talking about the four phases of retirement, and depending on which way you want to look at it, that can mean a lot of different things. So as we go through this morning, you'll see the approach that I want to take today, which in my view is an equally important one to the financial side. Before I kick off, I will just give you a quick reminder about the annual government contribution, just to make sure you're maximising that. Very simple agenda, really. We will just talk exclusively about the four phases. And if you can see there, I'm actually going to be focusing very much on the non-financial aspects of retirement planning. And we'll finish up with some action steps, and there'll be time at the end for your questions. So just to go straight into the annual government contribution, just a reminder. In this case, it's as close as a free lunch as you're ever going to get in this world. Just a few things just to remind you about. If you put in $1,042.86 per annum, you will receive $521.43 from the government into your account. There's only 10 days to go until the 30th of June, and that's the annual cutoff date. So if you haven't or don't think that you have put in $1,042 to get the maximum, now's a time just to double check that, and you've got 10 days to top that up. That comes either from your salary and wages seamlessly each week or fortnight or month, or you can pay the Inland Revenue direct, or you can pay us directly. And importantly, even if you can't do the full amount, the 1,042, you still get 50 cents for every dollar you put in from the government. Just also a reminder that it's only your contributions that count. So what your employer puts in doesn't count towards that dollar amount, and neither do transfers from any Australian super fund. If you think you're all good and have maximise your contribution in that respect to get the contribution, there's nothing more you need to do. Booster will claim that for you automatically sometime in early July, which is not far away. And also just a final note that this stops when you turn 65. So just be aware of that and make sure you're maximising your entitlement there. Okay, so let's just get into the main event for today. So the four non-financial phases of retirement. Phase one, often referred to as the vacation phase, and for good reasons, tends to represent the ideal picture that we all have in our minds about retirement, and that day when you can just get up in the morning, no need to get in the car or the bus or the train, and just chill out and relax. It's a great experience. You've all had that feeling when you've booked yourself a week or two's holiday or a few days, and that morning when you wake up and you think, "Great, I'm on holiday." So that feeling does kick in straight away. However, it does tend to lose its luster after about 12 to 18 months. There's only so many days of fun you can continue to have day after day after day with nothing much more to do than just be on this really extended vacation. It is important that you do budget for some fun in this phase. You would normally, hopefully, have all of your health and faculties available to you. So go out and enjoy life while you can, live it up a little. And as you've probably seen, if you haven't already in the previous webinars, there's some discussion there about budgeting for the early phases of your retirement being different from the latter phases. So make sure you budget for that. But there are some big buts. As I said, that phase tends to lose its luster after about 12 to 18 months. And unfortunately, then you will typically head into a phase two, which is often described as the loss and lost phase. And in here, you end up, and the reason why you tend to feel a little bit lost is you literally lose what they call the big five. And these are the things that you used to have regularly in your daily lives, starting with routines. All of a sudden, a lot of the routines that you used to have, if you're going to work every day, that becomes a routine, that's gone out the window. So that gets lost. You also lose it'll start losing a sense of your identity. You're in a completely different phase that you've transitioned into. You also tend to start losing the relationships that you had, particularly with those people that you worked with for a long time and outside your life in that sense. You also start losing a sense of purpose. You can see on that little cartoon there, you wake up in the morning, it's up to you entirely. Just go back to sleep or get up. There's nothing grabbing you to make you get out of bed. And for some, there's also a sense of a loss of power as well. So these are five big emotions that hit in this phase. And typically you don't see them coming. You go into that vacation phase, everything's great, and then one day you wake up and they all start hitting at once. Without getting too depressed about things, it's also typically the phase where you start coming face to face with what they call the 3Ds. Divorce, depression, and decline. Again, at the risk of sounding a little bit too depressed, but I just want to paint the picture of what tends to happen for far too many people when they enter retirement without having thought properly about what they're in for. And sadly, it's very easy to get stuck in this phase. And you're going to face quite a degree of sort of fear and anxiety as all of these big five and the 3Ds start affecting your daily life thinking. As I said, it is easy to get stuck in this phase, and you probably know yourself some retirees and people who are there who just, you can sense that they're a little bit lost. They don't quite know what they're doing, and they've lost all of those, some of the meaning and their purpose in life. But eventually there comes a time when you wake up and realize that something has got to change. And this is when we start transitioning into phase three. It's about making your life more meaningful again. It can also deliver its fair share of disappointments and failures, and I'll talk a little bit more about that soon. I think that little picture sums up far too much for a lot of people. You start doing the things that you thought you were going to do, and suddenly they're not quite what they're cracked up to be, or you're not getting maximum enjoyment out of them. So typically, the phase involves just trying to find that meaning. Trial and error, testing out a few hobbies that you have sitting on your bucket list. Here's a typical list that no doubt some of you may have already started thinking about that you're going to start doing when you're in retirement. And the encouragement here is to make sure you keep trying to do these things if you find yourself in this phase. Otherwise, if you don't and you give up and stop, you might sadly end up finding yourself back in phase two again. And far too many people get stuck in phase two. The reality is, on average, only about 10 to 15% of retirees manage to skip phases 2 and 3. As I say, the only 10 or 15% go straight from phase 1 to phase 4. Again, I don't want to sound too depressed about it. It's not inevitable that you go into these phases. But the most significant thing you can do to lower the chances of spending too much or even any time in phase 2 or 3 is if you are already doing these things before you retire. For example, number 8 on that list says learn a new language. If you've never learnt a new language or not really spoken a different language other than English for your entire life, it is really difficult to just suddenly pick that up, because if you had a real desire to learn a second language, chances are, if it was a real passion of yours, you may well and should have been doing something along those lines before you get to retirement. The trick is you want to have retirement as seamless as possible. So if you've got the list of things that you're on there, I would encourage you to start entering the trial and error phase before you hit retirement, rather than it being an outworking of gone through a lost phase where you've had nothing, no hobbies to focus on or things that you're passionate about. You can start doing some small things now. For example, if you literally did want to learn a new language, there are a lot of apps out there, for example, Duolingo, that you can download and start playing around with that now, before you get to retirement. See if you like it. The problem is that often when you try these things, you actually find you don't like it. So better to find out in advance and keep trying these things. If you want to write a book, and you've never written a book before, start writing now. The best way to learn how to write a book is literally to start writing. So don't wait until retirement to start doing that. Start doing it now. Hopefully you get the picture. Golfing, don't try and start playing golf for the first time ever when you turn 65. If you've never played golf before, it's a difficult sport to get into. So if you really, really thought you're passionate about golf, you should be playing a bit of golf now, even if it's just hitting some balls into a practice net outside your backyard for a couple of minutes a day. So hopefully you get the sense of where I'm coming from on that phase. Now, the trial and error phase can go on for quite a while until you, if you're in this phase, until you start finding those things that you're really passionate about, that you want to keep doing. And the idea is to get into the final phase, which is loosely termed reinventing and rewiring. It is the true happiness phase. Not everyone breaks into this phase. It is the place you want to get to, and it is definitely the happiest. Interestingly, a lot of studies have looked into this phase and what is it? What is one of the key things that enables people to get into this phase? And it usually involves service to others. And that that service can manifest itself in multiple ways. And here's a great picture of literally some old retired folks in America who go to markets and fairs on a regular basis, and they sit down there with their cups of tea and coffee, and they just hand out advice to anyone who wants to come and have a chat to them. So this is their version of serving others. It's all about finding some, that meaning in your life, and really, most importantly, what you'll find if you think about it, it ends up in you being able to recover the big five things that you lost in phase two. So when you are serving others, you will find that you do have a sense of purpose. You will end up developing some routines if it becomes a regular thing that you are doing, you're volunteering to do. You obviously will start picking up some new relationships, which become really important to you in your life. You get a sense of identity from doing these activities. So getting those big five back is the key to making sure you have that happiness phase in retirement. So I didn't want to spend too much longer on things this morning because it's an area that is significantly different from my usual webinars where I've focused on the financial aspects. But hopefully you've got the message today that the non-financial psychological aspect of retirement planning cannot be overstated. And it's really important to build that into your retirement planning thinking. So I've sort of suggested a way forward. If you're new to the webinars, I would definitely encourage you to watch and listen to the first 5 webinars. They are much more quantitatively focused, looking at the financial side. They cover the general road to retirement from a financial aspect. They look at the 5 common retirement mistakes to avoid when you're doing your planning. It focuses also on unlocking retirement income and the most effective way of doing that. We also look at how KiwiSaver and New Zealand Super can supplement themselves in terms of providing regular income. And the other webinar also looks at how to maximize your government entitlements and benefits. So have a look at those. Because you have joined in today or you have listened, you'll get a link through, I think, to all of the previous webinars as well. So if you haven't had a chance to have a look at those, do that. When you go through the webinars, you'll also hear me mention often our My Money Map app. So if you are already a KiwiSaver member of ours, which I'm assuming is the case, if you haven't already, if you go onto the portal that you have for your individual account, you will see a little button there that talks about My Money Map. And I would strongly encourage you to use that as a basis to pull together a little bit of a retirement plan. It's got some nice graphs, shows you what sort of track you're on, and enables you to play around with some of the settings, adjust the age at which you actually retire, the sort of fund you're in, how much you're contributing, and then it'll very quickly tell you what your retirement might look like from a financial perspective. So it's a great way to interact and see the effect of some of the decisions that you might make financially as a first step. I think it's important if you're going to try and learn a little bit more about what I talked about this morning, that you actually make some time to think about what I've talked about today. Each of you will know individually how likely you are to fall into that lost phase 2, which is obviously the most depressing phase. It can be a lot of fun snapping out of phase 2 and getting into phase 3 and taking the trial and error aspect to its ultimate degree. But take some time just to reflect on what I've talked about and think about how you might be able to go straight from phase 1 to phase 4. A lot of it is in advance of that, as I talked about, just thinking about the bucket list of things that you want to do and whether those are truly going to fulfill you in retirement. if you've not done them before, then you're not going to find out until you actually start doing them. So try and find out, opportunities to start exploring that. If you've never been on a cruise before, quite literally, some people think cruise ships and cruising is their idea of heaven on earth, but others equally think it's hell. So if you think you want to spend a considerable amount of time cruising around the world, probably useful just to find a nice little short cruise to go on beforehand and see really how much you enjoy it and like it. The other thing I'd recommend you do, just to follow up today, because in the interest of full disclosure, I can't claim that what I've talked about today is original. And in my researching over the last 10 years or so, I keep stumbling across all sorts of great words of advice and TED Talk on YouTube. And the material for today came from a Dr. Riley Moynes. So if you Google him on YouTube, you'll find him present what I've talked about today in a much more uh, engaging way than I've been able to do today via a TED Talk. And he talks exactly about the four phases. So useful to listen to him on the YouTube to give you the sort of his nuanced and more engaging way of describing it, which might resonate a little bit more than just listening to my voice today. He's also part of a website that he curates called retirementwisdom.com. So again, if you wanted more information about what I've talked about today and just some good advice, podcasts and newsletters, all about this whole retirement space, I would highly recommend his website for that as well. And then finally, as I talked about before, depending on just how complex you think your financial situation is, always a good idea to use a financial advisor to tease out a lot of what perhaps you might discover in the My Money Map. If you play around with that, if you listen to the webinars, it might trigger some thoughts that you've had. You've got some questions. And as I said, we've got financial advisors that we would recommend to you up and down the country that can help to finalize your retirement plans. That's all I wanted to just cover off today. So I'm going to allow you to throw some questions in if you haven't already, and we'll see what that's prompted. How do I find the questions, Sean? Okay, so it looks like there are no questions. I'm in a sense not surprised because normally when I talk about the financial aspects, there are all sorts of interesting little questions that people have just to clarify some of the mechanics. So oh, hold on, looks like we do have a potential question.
What were the 3Ds again?
All the 3Ds. Yeah, divorce, depression, and decline. The first two are self-explanatory. The decline is in a physical sense. You start feeling your age. Okay, someone has asked about their partner moving to a 4-day week when he turns 65 and that you would like to do the same, but a few years younger. Does that sound sensible? Oh, absolutely. I can attest to the value of that as a nice, smooth way of transitioning rather than it being a binary stop work, start retiring. I went myself down from 5 days to 4 days to 3 days and now to 2 days a week. And it really does help to ease into that transition phase and allows you some time to just explore those other elements of your passions in a way that gets you into that trial and error phase without going into phase two. Another question here, someone who's in their 50s and has withdrawn their KiwiSaver to pay the mortgage. The impact, so you've withdrawn your KiwiSaver to pay your mortgage. I assume you've withdrawn your KiwiSaver for a first home because you can't literally take your KiwiSaver out just to pay your mortgage. So I'm assuming that that's what you've done. You've bought your first home. KiwiSaver is great for that. It's usually for people who are a little bit younger. So go into the My Money map. In a sense, you're sort of starting again a little bit. There will be a financial impact of that. Start playing around with the My Money map, and it'll show you what route you might be on if you're starting some good contributions now for the next 15 years or so. Yeah, someone's asked about this recording being sent to you afterwards. Yes, that will arrive in your email inbox, so you can share that with your partners. Someone's asked if there's a phase 5, the afterlife, I guess. Yeah, great question. Someone's not really asked a question, just made a statement. Both 62, both looking to go down to 3 days a week. Just need to check the finances to do that. Great. Sounds like you're onto it. As I said before, just transitioning more slowly out of work is a great strategy. Someone's asked about an equity scheme to release cash. A good idea. I'm assuming you mean a home equity release. For some people that works. It's a way of downsizing in terms of releasing money without actually selling the house, which is not truly downsizing. But yeah, there are pros and cons. I think some of the biggest pitfalls with home equity release is that you're only limited to between 25 and 35% of the equity in your home, so you can't get the full amount out. So you're still only releasing a small portion of it. And also you're tending to you're drawing down and adding a mortgage effectively at the floating rate, which is also quite expensive as well. So it's not everyone's cup of tea, and there's some significant limitations. Someone's asked, what are the pitfalls when applying for the pension when your partner is still working? I wouldn't say the pitfalls. You just need to be aware of you can apply for a joint pension. I talked about it in the webinar beforehand. So you can include your still working partner in the payments as well as a one-off. You can't put them in at one stage and get the pension to recover that and then take them out again afterwards. So understanding that is useful, and a lot of that information is on the MSD website. But if you want to get more of an insight into that, initially it's covered off in my previous webinar number 5. Someone's asked when they can pull out your KiwiSaver. So age 65 is the magic date that allows you access to your KiwiSaver money. Someone's asked about how they do it. Probably rather than cover off the details now, I think there's probably some information on our website that shows you what to do. It's fairly straightforward. If you just want to chat to someone in our team about it, just give them a call on the number and there'll be someone there to easily deal with that. Advantages of leaving money in KiwiSaver instead of putting it in the bank. Yeah, it's about time frames and time horizons. The reality is when you turn 65, your life expectancy is another 20 to 25 years. So you've still got a very long-term horizon. And if you just put all of that money into a cash account at the bank, you're sort of automatically changing your time horizon to a very short one, where I think there are better longer-term risk-adjusted return answers available if you continue to leave a chunk of that invested in portfolios that have assets that will protect some of that money against the ravages of inflation through growth over time. So there are some better answers, I think, once you understand that concept. And some of my other webinars have covered off how to generate good retirement income through maintenance of some managed portfolio. So again, just go back and have a look at some of those, the ones that are focusing on generating retirement income from a managed portfolio and using things like the 3 buckets approach, etc. There was a quick question about, are index funds a good way to start investing? Yeah, I would say that's not a bad way to start because you can just get an instant diversified portfolio. If you've got a small amount of money, it's not a bad way to kick things off. But over time, as your balance increases, it's probably useful to have a combination of index and active funds. Well, there's lots of good questions coming through here. I'm not sure I'm going to have time to go through them all. And we start getting into the realms of personal circumstances. And it's probably better if you talk to someone individually about that. It's very hard to provide a general answer that's going to actually go anywhere near satisfying what your personal circumstances are implying. So again, if you're on our system and you have an advisor attached to your account because you've come to us through them, I would encourage you to go back to them and they will be able to provide you with some initial advice that's free. If you're starting to stretch into much more significant areas, then they'll talk to you about, hey, that's potentially going to cost you a little bit more money to get that advice. But I think the initial consultation side should be free and they'll give you some quick, short, sharp answers to some of those questions you've got on there. If you don't, then by all means, give our team a call here. We have in-house advisors who can also just quickly perhaps try and point you in the right direction, give you some more specific answers. They're fully qualified to do that. So I would encourage you perhaps to do that. Someone's asked if KiwiSaver changes after age 65 if you don't pull out your money. Yes, it does. Sort of subtly, as I said, the government in their wisdom have decided that once you turn 65, they're no longer going to give you their contribution, which is up for debate at the moment. I think the minister has indicated that they're reconsidering that. No, in fact, it was I'm wrong, it was the Retirement Commissioner who's recommended that that continues on. And also, if you're employed and still working, your employer is no longer obliged to provide their contribution. I would suggest that that would be a little bit mean if you've had a long-term loyal relationship with your employer. I suspect that they would be happy to continue to provide that, but legally they don't have to. Yeah, someone just asked a follow-up question to NZ Super. If your partner is under 65. I know some things changed in 2020, but if you have a look at the MSD website, it'll provide you some more information about including your partner or not if they're under age 65. So there are still some areas where you can do that. Okay, look, it's 10:34 now. Very much appreciate you taking the time to join me this morning and some great questions to follow up. I hope that's given you some food for thought. Retirement planning is not all about the financial side. It's definitely just as equally important to focus on the psychological side and preparing for that. Just being aware that this is what you might face if you don't think about it in advance, I think is a big step forward. So having just joined me this morning and listened to that is a credit to you. You've taken a major step forward in helping to avoid that phase 2. No one wants to be lost and losing it in retirement. So thank you again and look forward to catching up with you again at the next webinar. Thank you.